Good evening, Jerry. How are you doing?
You.
Good to see you. Miriam, good to see you. Baruch, good to see you. Tonight we have it's a very interesting portion. It's called Vayetze. And my struggle has been when reading it and knowing that I'm doing the message for it is how to bring across what I'm seeing in it. But let's read it and then we can talk about what you see in this portion, because I've already been looking at it for actually a whole week. So Vayetze, he left. Jacob left. The setting was, do you remember what had happened before? He had deceived Esau. He had deceived his father. His mother, Rivka, told him to leave because Esau was going to kill him. So here it says, Jacob left Beersheba and set out for Haran. He came upon a certain place. Brian, do you want to mute yourself? He came upon a certain place and stopped there for the night. So whenever you see makom, hamakom, believe it or not, hamakom in Hebrew is one of the ways that they refer to God. There's many, many references in the scriptures for God, and this is one of them, hamakom. It's talking about a place where there's going to be a special encounter with God. And he stopped there for the night because the sun set. He took one of the stones. It says here he put it under his head and he lay it in that place. The rabbis have different opinions about that. One of them, I think it was Ibn Ezra or Rashi, I can't remember, who said he made it more like a shape of like a horseshoe to protect his head from the wild beasts of the desert, or the scorpions, or the snakes. And later on, we'll see he set it up as a matzeva, as a stone, because it was going to announce that something special was in that place. Like when we have our burial, we have a matzeva, a headstone with our names on it. And this is basically what that stone was. But whether it was under his head, I'm not sure, because it couldn't have been a very comfortable pillow. It was a stone. But anyway, he had a dream. And there was a stairway that was set from the ground, and its top reached into heaven, into the sky. And it says messengers of God. Here we say the word is Malachei Elohim. So it's like angels. Angels were going up and down. So they're started from the ground going up. So it's telling us that really there are angels here. And they go up to give God messages of what's going on. He knows anyway, but he sends his messengers here. And I love that. I just love the idea of knowing that there are angels here. And standing beside him in his dream was Yud He Vav He, who said, I am Yud He Vav He, the God of your father Abraham, the God of Isaac. The ground on which you are lying, I will assign to you and to your offspring. He's reiterating again, like he did to Isaac and Abraham. This ground was going to belong to Israel. No matter what they say there in the Middle East, God had given it to us. Your descendants shall be like the dust of the earth. You shall spread out to the west and to the east and to the north and to the south, and all the families of the earth shall bless themselves by you and your descendants. I love that. It's one of the things I based my message on this week. But what are these blessings? How will the earth be blessed through us? Remember, I am with you. Whenever we feel down, or whenever we feel alone, whenever we feel frightened or anxious, remember, I am with you. I will protect you wherever you go and will bring you back to this land. How often do I think, should I move to Israel? What should I do? But I know that when the time is right, God will bring us back to the land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. So there's no greater hope than this. He's with us wherever we are. He'll protect us wherever we are. He will never leave us until he's completed all his promises to us, through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So Jacob awoke from his sleep and says, surely Yud He Vav He is present in this place, and I did not know it. He was shaken. He said, how awesome, Norah is awesome, is this place. This is none other than the abode of God, the place where God lives. This is the Sha'ar HaShamayim, the gateway to heaven. Imagine this place that he was in, and it's still there to this day. Early in the morning, Jacob took the stone that he had put behind his head or under his head or however it was. He set it up as a matzeva, and he anointed it. He poured oil on it, on the head of it, on the top of it, al roshi. And he named that site Bet El, the house of God. Previously, the name of the city had been Luz. I looked up Luz today, and it means hazel, but I don't know what it would have meant in ancient Hebrew. Then Jacob made a vow, saying, if God remains with me, protecting me on this journey that I'm making, and giving me bread to eat and clothing to wear, and I return safe to my father's house, Yud He Vav He shall be my God. So he's just beginning his journey. He's just left in fear. He was anxious, going to a new place. And he knew that if all these things happened, then he knew that this would be his God, that God would be with him no matter what. And this stone, which I've set up as a matzeva, as a pillar, will be God's house. Now they say that this is where the temple would be built, where Mount Moriah is. They say that this is where Jacob went to sacrifice Isaac. That's a very special place. And all that you give me, I will set aside a tithe, a tenth for you. That's a very interesting statement. Where would he get this? I know that in one of the past readings, we read how Abraham met Melchizedek, who was a king, who was a righteous king, and who Abraham gave him a tenth of what he had. And this is where we get the idea of whatever we earn, it's a gift from God. He allows us to give it to us. All that you give me, I will set aside a tenth for you. And that's why we in this community, we give back to God. We give back to our temple, our synagogue, a tenth of our income. Whatever we earn, we give him a tenth. And Jacob resumed his journey and came to the land of Bnei Kedem, the sons of the east. There before his eyes was a well in the open. 3 flocks of sheep were lying there beside it, for the flocks were watered from that well. The stone on the mouth of the well was large, so it would have taken several of the shepherds to push it aside. When all the flocks were gathered there, the stone would be rolled from the mouth of the well, and the sheep watered. Then the stone would be put back in its place at the mouth of the well. Jacob said to them, my friends, where are you from? And they said, we are from Haran. He said to them, do you know Lavan, the son of Nahor? And they said, yes, we do. It's interesting because when Abraham sent his servant to get a wife for Isaac, it was at a well. Here again, Jacob meets at a well. Very often we see this. Even Yeshua met a woman at the well. He continued, is he well? Talking about Lavan. And they answered, yes, he is. And there is his daughter Rachel coming with the flock. She was a shepherdess. He said, it is still broad daylight, too early to round up the animals, water the flock, and take them to pasture. But they said, we cannot until all the flocks are rounded up. Then the stone is rolled off the mouth of the well, and we water the sheep. While he was still speaking with them, Rachel came with her father's flock, for she was its shepherd. So she was pretty strong. You had to be brave to be a shepherd. We remember stories of King David, how he had to fight off a lion or he had to fight off a bear. Here was this woman. She was like an Amazon. And when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of his uncle Laban, and the flock of his uncle Laban, or Lavan, Jacob went up. He rolled a stone off the mouth of the well. Look how he was so excited. He rolled off the stone and he watered the flock of his uncle Lavan. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and broke into tears. He was so emotional. Very different than Esau. Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's relative and that he was Rivka's son. And she ran and told her father. Now, Lavan would have been very excited because he remembered when the servant came, he brought all kinds of gifts. So he was going to run, it says here, on hearing the news of his sister's son, Jacob. Laban ran to greet him. He couldn't wait to see what else he brought. He embraced him and kissed him and took him into his house. And he told Lavan all that had happened. And Lavan said to him, you are truly my bone and my flesh. And then he stayed with him for a whole month. And Lavan said to Jacob, just because you're a relative, should you serve me for nothing? Tell me, what shall your wages be? Now Lavan had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah had weak eyes. There are many opinions of what weak eyes means. Maybe she was more glasses. Maybe she was not pretty. Maybe she was always crying. Who knows? Rachel was shapely and beautiful. Jacob, with his eyes, loved Rachel. So he answered, I will serve you 7 years for your younger daughter, Rachel. And Laban said, better that I give her to you than I should give her to an outsider. Stay with us. So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days because of his love for her. Then Jacob said to Lavan, give me my wife, for my time is fulfilled, that I may, it says here, go cohabitate with her. That's how they would be married. He would just go into the tent and they were married. No big weddings. And Laban gathered all the people of the place and made a feast. And when evening came, he took his daughter Leah and brought her to him, and he cohabitated with her. He took his daughter Leah. He didn't give her Rachel. This is what's called in the scriptures in Hebrew, midah keneged midah. In the same way that he stole the blessing, the birthright of his older brother, of Esau, the older sister was given to him in her stead. Measure for measure, we get what we give. Lavan had given his maidservant Zilpah to his daughter Leah as her maid. When the morning came, there was Leah. So he said to Lavan, what is this you've done to me? I served you for Rachel. Why did you deceive me? Well, Jacob, you deceived. Now you get deceived. That's why Yeshua said, do unto others as you will have them do unto you. And Laban just says, it's not our practice to marry off the younger before the older. Could have told him that before, but he was also deceitful. Wait until the bridal week of this one is over, and we will give you that one too, provided you serve me another 7 years. Some say he just worked a week, or wait until the bridal week of this one is over. that it could have been just until the so-called honeymoon or whatever was the customs of the day. And then he gave Rachel, or he had to work another 7 years to wait for Rachel. So he waited at the bridal week of the one, and then he gave him his daughter Rachel as a wife. I tend to think that Rachel was with him right away, and then he worked another 7 years. But once we get there, I'll ask him and we'll know for sure. Lavan had given his maidservant Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as her maid. And Jacob went into Rachel, and he loved Rachel more than Leah, and he served him another 7 years. Seeing that Rachel was unloved, the word has been translated in other versions as hated, which is more like rejected.
Sorry, you mean that Leah was unloved?
Leah was unloved. Sorry, what did I say?
Rachel.
I meant Leah. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I know. Just people are not single
Thank
words.
Thank you. Seeing that Leah was rejected or unloved, Yud He Vav He had mercy on her and opened her womb. But Rachel remained barren. Leah conceived and bore a son and named him Reuven, which means the Lord has seen. Reuven. Re means see, my son. He's seen my affliction. And it also means now my husband will love me. She conceived again and bore a son and said, this is because the Lord has heard, Simeon, Shemion, Shema, that I was unloved and has given me this one also. Again she conceived and bore a son. This time my husband will become attached to me, for I have borne him 3 sons, and his name was Levi, which means my heart. She conceived again and bore a son and declared, this time I will praise Yud He Vav He. She named him Yehudah. Then she stopped bearing. But that word, Yehudah, is where our people get the name Yehudim, which we call Jews. And that word means praise God, praise Yah. We have lost that today. Just because we say we're Jews doesn't mean that we praise God. That's something that's really important for us to come back to. When Rachel saw that she had borne Jacob no children, she became envious of her sister. And Rachel said to Jacob, give me children or I shall die. And Jacob was angry with Rachel and said, am I in the place of God, who deny you the fruit of the womb? It was well understood that it was God who was in control over the womb of the woman. If she could not give birth, then there was something that God was doing to hold that back. She said, here's my maid Bilhah, just like Sarah did with Hagar. Here's my maid Bilhah. Be with her that she may bear on my knees, and that through her I too may have children. That was a custom of that day. And she gave him her maid Bilhah as concubine, and Jacob cohabitated with her. And Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. And Rachel said, God has vindicated me. Indeed, God has heeded my plea and giving me a son, and she named him Dan. Rachel's maid Bilhah conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. And Rachel said, a fateful contest I waged with my sister. And I prevailed, so she named him Naphtali. When Leah saw that she stopped bearing children, she took her maid Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a concubine. And Jacob was very busy. And when Leah's maid Zilpah bore Jacob a son, I mean, they were all born very close together. Some of them may have been even a few months apart. Leah said, what luck, and she named him Gad. When Leah's maid Zilpah bore Jacob a second son, Leah said, what fortune, meaning, Women will deem me fortunate, so she named him Asher. Once at the time of the wheat harvest, Reuben came upon some mandrakes in the field and brought them to his mother Leah. Rachel said to Leah, "Please give me some of your son's mandrakes." Now, Leah, you're going to read later that she, remember, these women were still involved in paganism. There were fertility rites. Mandrakes. I have a picture here of a mandrake. Let me open it up and see if I can share it. Here, new share. Here, can you see that? That's what mandrakes look like. Can you see how it almost looks like a person? It has legs, it has arms, a head, and a headdress.
Totally looks like a human body.
Yeah. And I've seen this in other, there was another movie once, it was I think a French movie or a Spanish movie, where somebody wanted to get pregnant and they put this mandrake under the bed. This was a ritual, a fertility rite that was used at the time by these superstitious people. Really, it was it was a type of aphrodisiac, but really it couldn't have nothing to do with someone getting pregnant. Let me go back to share the screen again. Okay. Can you see the words again?
Yeah.
But she said to her, "Was it not enough for you to take away my husband, that you should also take my son's mandrakes?" And Rachel replied, "I promise he will lie with you tonight in return for your son's mandrakes." That's how much she believed that these mandrakes would help her to get pregnant. When Jacob came home from the field in the evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, "You are to sleep with me, for I have hired you with my son's mandrakes." And he lay with her that night. God heeded Leah, and she conceived and bore him a fifth son. And Leah said, "God has given me my reward for having given my maid to my husband." So she named him Issachar. When Leah conceived again, and she bore a sixth son, Leah said, "God has given me a choice gift. This time my husband will exalt me, for I have borne him 6 sons." So she named him Zebulun. And then she bore him a daughter named Dinah. Finally, God remembered Rachel. God heeded her and opened her womb. She conceived and bore a son and said, "God has taken away my disgrace." So she named him Yosef, which is to say, "May the Lord add another son for me." And after Rachel had borne Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, "Let me go back to my own home. Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served you, that I may go well, for you know what services I have rendered you." And Laban said to him, "If you will indulge me, I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me on your account." So you see how divination was a pagan practice. And he continued, "Name the wages due from me, and I will pay you." But he said, "You know well how I served you, and how your livestock has fared with me. For the little you had before I came has grown to much, since the Lord has blessed you wherever I turned. And now, when shall I make provision for my own household?" Because really, everything that he had was Laban's. He didn't take wages. He worked for him. Everything he had, except for his wives, belonged to Laban. And Laban said, "What shall I pay you?" And Jacob says, "Don't pay me anything, but do this for me. I will again pasture and keep your flocks." So we're going to see this didn't happen overnight. This would have taken another season or so. "Let me pass through your entire flock today, And I'm going to remove from there every speckled and spotted animal, every dark-colored sheep, every spotted and speckled goat. That will be my wages. So it would be easy to distinguish between the different cattle. And in the future, when you go over my wages, let my honesty toward you testify for me. If there are among my goats any that are not speckled or spotted, or any sheep that are not dark colored, they got there by theft. He was already talking about what was going to happen, and we'll see. And Laban said, very well, let it be as you say. But that same day, Laban removed the streaked and spotted male goats and the speckled and spotted female goats, everyone that had white on it, and all the dark-colored sheep, and put them in charge of his sons. And he told his sons to put a distance of 3 days' journey between them and Jacob, while Jacob was pasturing the rest of Laban's flock. Look how deceitful Laban was. But Jacob then got fresh shoots of poplar and of almond and wood, and peeled white stripes in them, laying bare the white of the shoots. I think this is superstition, because it wouldn't have done anything. But maybe it's something that God told him to do. I don't know why he did it, or what made him think that it would make a difference. The rods that he peeled, he set up in front of the goats, as they were at their troughs, wherever they drank, where the goats came to drink. Their mating occurred when they came to drink. And since the goat mated by the rods, the goats brought forth streaked, speckled, and spotted young. To me, this is a miracle, because I don't see any other way that it could have happened. But Jacob dealt separately with the sheep. He made these animals face the streaked or wholly dark-colored animals in Laban's flock. So he produced special flocks for himself, which he did not put with Laban's flocks. When the sturdier animals were mated, Jacob would place the rods in the trough in full view of the animals so that they mated by the rods. But the feebler animals, he would not place them there. Thus, the feeble ones went to Laban, and the sturdy ones went to Jacob. So the man grew exceedingly rich and came to own large flocks, maidservants and menservants, camels and donkeys. Now he heard the things that Laban's sons were saying. And look at the lies, okay? Because this same spirit we see all over today. Jacob has taken all that was our father's, and from that which was our father's, he has built up all this wealth. He's giving credit to his father, their father, instead of what Jacob had done. They're doing the same thing to Israel today. Jacob also saw that Laban's manner toward him was not as it had been in the past. So obviously, this whole attitude was not only with Laban, but his sons. And the Lord said to Jacob, return to your ancestors' land where you were born, and I will be with you. Jacob had Rachel and Leah called to the field where his flock was, and he said to them, I see that your father's manner toward me is not as it's been in the past, but the God of my father has been with me. As you know, I have served your father with all my might, with everything that I have. But your father has cheated me, changing my wages time and again. God, however, would not let him do me harm. If he said this, the speckled shall be your wages, then all the flocks would drop speckled young. If he said this, the streak shall be your wages, then all the flocks would drop streaked young. God has taken away your father's livestock and given them to me. Once at the mating time of the flocks, I had a dream in which I saw that the male goats or mating with the flock were streaked and speckled and mottled. And in the dream, a messenger of God said to me, Jacob, here, Hineni, here I am, I answered. And the messenger said, this is what happened. This is why he did that, because he had a dream. And God spoke to him in the dream. The messenger spoke to him, the malach. The angel said, note well that all the male goats, which are mating with the flocks, are streaked, speckled, and mottled. For I have seen all that Laban has been doing to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed a pillar, the Matseva, where you made a vow to me. Now arise, leave this land and return to your native land. This is after 20 years at least. Then Rachel and Leah answered him, saying, have we still a share in the inheritance of our father's house? He regards us as outsiders, and he's even sold us and has used up our purchase price. Truly, all the wealth that God has taken away from our father belongs to us and our children. Now, do just what God has told you. So Jacob put his children and his wives on camels, and he drove off all his livestock and all the wealth that he had amassed, the livestock in his possession that he had acquired in Padan Aram, to go to his father Isaac in the land of Canaan. Meanwhile, Laban had gone to shear his sheep, and Rachel stole her father's household idols. So we see that she was still steeped in paganism. And how many of Rachel's do we still have amongst our people? Jacob left Laban the Aramean in the dark, not telling him that he was fleeing. And he fled with all that he had. Soon he was across the great Euphrates River, heading toward the hill country of Gilead. On the third day, Laban was told that Jacob had fled. So he took his relatives with him and pursued a distance of 7 days, catching up with him in the hill country of Gilead. But God appeared to Laban the Aramean in a dream by night and said to him, beware of attempting to do anything to Jacob, either good or bad. Laban overtook Jacob. Jacob had pitched his tent on the hills, on the height, and Laban with his relatives encamped in the hill country of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, what did you mean by keeping me in the dark and carrying off my daughters like captives of the sword? Why did you flee in secret and mislead me and not tell me? I would have sent you off with festive music, with timbrel and lyre. Yeah, sure. You did not even let me kiss my sons and daughters goodbye. It was a foolish thing for you to do. I have it in my power to harm you. But the God of your fathers said to me last night, beware of attempting anything with Jacob, good or bad. Very well, you had to leave because you were longing for your father's house. But why did you steal my gods? Jacob answered Laban, saying, I was afraid because I thought you would take your daughters from me by force, which he probably would have done. But anyone with whom you find, now listen to this, we have to be careful when we make an oath. Anyone with whom you find your gods shall not remain alive. This is not only for this is also for future generations. In the presence of our relatives, point out what I have of yours and take it. And Jacob, of course, did not know that Rachel had stolen them. So Laban went into Jacob's tent and Leah's tent and the tent of the 2 maidservants, but he didn't find them. He left Leah's tent and he entered Rachel's tent. Rachel, meantime, had taken the idols, placed them in the camel saddle, and sat on them. And Laban rummaged through the tent without finding them. For she said to her father, let my lord not take it amiss that I cannot rise before you for I am in a womanly way. In other words, she had her period. So he searched and he couldn't find the idols. But because of what she said, she ended up later dying on the road on their way back to Canaan. It was the same thing when Rivka said to Jacob, because Jacob didn't want to do what she said, and she said, let the curse be on me. We have to be really careful what we speak before God. Now Jacob became incensed and took up his grievance with Laban, and Jacob spoke up and said to him, what is my crime? What is my guilt that you should pursue me? You rummaged through all my things? What have you found of all your household objects? Set it here before my relative and yours, and let them decide between us two. These 20 years I have spent in your service. Your ewes and your she-goats never miscarried, nor did I feast on rams from your flock. Whatever was torn by beasts, I never brought to you. I made myself good. I made good the loss. You exacted it of me, whether snatched by day or snatched by night. And often scorching heat ravaged me by day, and frost by night, and sleep fled from my eyes. You know, we see that Jacob was blessed and that he became prosperous. And yes, he was blessed because God was with him. But he had to work hard. Blessings are, when you bless someone, you're giving them something that you have, but you're in relationship with that person. Jacob was in a relationship with God, but he also had to work hard for it. Scorching heat ravaged him day by day, and frost by night, and sleep. There were times he didn't sleep. Of the 20 years I spent in your household, I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters and 6 years for your flocks, and you changed my wages time and again. Had not the God of my father's house, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, been with me, you would have sent me away empty-handed. But it was my plight and the toil of my hands that God took notice of and gave judgment on last night. Then Laban spoke up and said to Jacob, the daughters are my daughters. The children are my children. The flocks are my flocks. All that you see is mine. Isn't that what they're saying today? And it's not true. Yet what can I do now about my daughters or the children they have borne? Come then, let's make a pact, you and I, that there may be a witness between you and me. So Jacob took a stone, set it up as a matzeva, a pillar, and Jacob said to his kinsmen, his relatives, gather stones. So they took stones and they made a mound. And they made had a meal there by the mound. Laban named it Yagar Sahaduta, but Jacob named it Galed. Let's see what it says about Galed. A stone heap of witness, and Yagar Zahaduta is Aramaic for the mound also. So he spoke Aramaic and they spoke Hebrew. Okay. And Laban declared, this mound of stones is a witness between you and me this day. That is why it's named Galed. I wonder if those stones are still there to this day. It's very possible. And it was called Mizpah because he said, may the Lord watch between you and me when we are out of sight of each other. If you ill-treat my daughters or take other wives besides my daughters, though no one else be about, remember it is God who will be witness between you and me. And Laban said to Jacob, here is this mound, and here the pillar which I have set up between you and me. This mound shall be witness, this pillar shall be witness, that I am not to cross to you past this mound, and you are not to cross to me past this mound, and this pillar with hostile intent. If only they would keep that today. May the God of Abraham, the God of Nahor, their ancestral deities, judge between us. And God swore by the fear of his father Isaac. Jacob then offered a sacrifice on the heights and invited his relatives to take part of the meal. And after the meal, they spent the night on the mount. And early in the morning, Laban kissed his sons and daughters and bade them goodbye. And then Laban left on his journey homeward. Jacob went on his way, and the messenger of God encountered him. And when he saw them, Jacob said, "This is God's camp." So he named that place Mahanaim, and next week we'll see what it is that happened at that place when we read Vayishlach. New. Any thoughts of what? Did any thoughts come up while we were reading? Other than what Mims?
No, I was waiting for you to read more. You said we're going to see what's going to happen or whatever relative to what's happening now. So I guess that comes next time. But yeah, I like all the parallel stories, like the hiding of the idols and like so many things have happened before, that are happening here again. It seems to be like a motif, and how people, one side, Laban is saying, how I'm being cheated out of everything when really he's doing the cheating. And even now, as you said, in Israel, what Israel's accused of, it's all lies.
Exactly. I want to, if you will allow me, I want to read what did I do with
Haftorah.
The Haftorah portion.
Okay, that's what you were saying.
Because the Haftorah portion has to do with the reading of the week. And this week, the Haftarah is from Hosea. And Hosea is known as the prophet of doom. Where are you, Haftarah? Where are you? Haftarah. Did I move it here? Yeah, I already had it prepared. Okay. Let me share the screen and let's read it. Okay. Hold on. Let me make it bigger view. Zoom in 200. Okay. Can you see it?
Yeah.
So this is from Hosea. It's so interesting. Hosea's father was named Be'eri. Hosea is a prophet of doom. His father, he's a son of Be'eri. That was one of the kibbutzim that was destroyed, that was attacked on October the 7th, Be'eri. And I said, boy, is God trying to give us a message. Listen to this. Jacob had to flee to the field of Aram. And there Israel served for a wife. His name after next week will be called, after the next portion, you'll see it's changed to Israel, which means Israel, the man struggled, man contended with God. Our people have always struggled, have always contended with God. There Israel served for a wife, and for a wife he had to tend sheep. And it was through a prophet that the Lord brought Israel up from Egypt, which is Moses. And by a prophet, he was preserved. Ephraim was Joseph's son. Remember, he had two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. And he brought his sons, we'll read this later, he brought his two sons to be blessed by Jacob. But he wanted Manasseh, who was the older one, to get the blessing of the firstborn, but Jacob crossed his hands over, and it would be Ephraim who would receive, the younger one received the blessing, just like Jacob and Esau, just like so many in our scriptures. So Ephraim bitterly provoked him to anger. So he shall put his blood guilt upon him, and the Lord shall avenge his disgrace on him. When Ephraim spoke, there was trembling. He was exalted in Israel, but when he incurred guilt through Baal, he died. So we see again, Ephraim, Israel, incurred guilt through Baal. The Baalim were the false gods. And he died. And now they go on sinning and have fashioned for themselves molten images of their silver by their skill, as well as idols entirely the work of the craftsmen. And they said of them, let the man who offers sacrifice kiss calves. They wanted the calves to bring them back to Egypt. Therefore they shall be as the morning mist, and as the dew that is gone early, like the chaff that is whirled away from the threshing floor by the wind, and like the smoke from the chimney. I am the Lord your God, from the land of Egypt, and you have known no other God but me, and there is no Savior beside me. There's no Savior beside Yud He Vav He, no matter what anybody says. I knew you in the wilderness, in the land of great drought. When they grazed, they were satisfied, and when they were filled, their hearts grew proud, and they forgot me. This is a recurring motif, as you say, Miriam, that every time we move to another land and our hearts grow proud because we are successful, we've made it, we forget God. So I became like a lion to them, like a leopard on the way. I will watch them. It's like a lion in wait. I will meet them like a bear bereaved of her cubs and rip open their closed up hearts. And there I will devour them like a lioness, and the wild beast shall mangle them. O Israel, you have destroyed yourself, for you are against me, against your help. I will be your king and will save you in all your cities, and your judges of whom you said, give me a king and prince. He never wanted us to have a king or a princess. He would be our king. He would be our savior. I gave you a king in my anger and took him away. He's talking about Saul in my wrath. Ephraim's guilt is bound up. His sin is stored away. The pains of childbirth shall come upon him. He's not a wise son, for there's no time to remain at the birth stool of babies. Shall I save them for the power of Sheol? Shall I redeem them from death? Where are your plagues, O death? Where is your destruction, O Sheol? Compassion shall be hidden from my eyes. For though he may flourish among the reeds, an east wind shall come. The wind of the Lord shall come up from the desert, and his spring shall become dry, and his fountain shall be dried up. It shall strip the treasure of all precious vessels. Shomron shall bear her guilt, for she has rebelled against her God. They shall fall by the sword. Their infants shall be dashed in pieces. Their pregnant women shall be ripped open. Isn't this exactly what's just happened in Israel, in just on the border on the other side of Gaza? Return, O Israel, to the Lord your God, for you have fallen because of your sin. Now, I'm not saying this. God is saying this. The prophet Hosea is saying this. Take words with you and return to the Lord. Say to him, forgive all guilt and accept what is good. Instead of calves, we will offer the words of our lip. Assyria shall not save us. We will not ride upon horses, nor shall we call any more the work of our hands our gods. For in you the orphans shall find mercy. I will heal their backsliding. I will love them freely, for my anger is turned away from him. I will be like the dew to Israel. See, there's hope. God will take care of us. He will blossom like the lily and cast forth his roots as Lebanon. His branches shall spread, and his beauty shall be like the olive tree, and his fragrance like Lebanon. Those who dwell under his shadow shall return. They shall bring to life new grain. Their fragrance shall be as the wine of Lebanon. Ephraim shall say, what have I to do any more with idols? As for me, I respond and look to God. I am a leafy cypress tree. Your fruit is provided by me. Whoever is wise, chacham, let him understand these things. Whoever is prudent, let him know them. For the ways of the Lord are yashar, straight, and the just walk in them, but transgressors stumble over them. This is a tough, tough message. God is warning us. Stop playing with idols. I want all my idols out of my land. And it's not only the land of Israel, which is filled with idols. And we saw that even at the time of the golden calf, when Moses was up on the mountain. Before we had our land, we were worshiping the golden calf. And what happened? 3,000 died that day. 3,000 by our own hand. We had to take them. These are not easy words to listen to. People don't want this kind of words. They want, oh, everything's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. Let's just go march. Let's just go say, hey, don't hate us. I'm against anti-Semitism. You can march all you want. We can rally all we want. If we don't return to God, we're lost, because only He can save us. We have to spend every single day of our life saying, what am I doing, God? How can I search me, see what I'm doing, help me be better? It's a tough message. I cringe when I have to write a message. I'm telling you.
I was thinking about, this is maybe too, anyway, I'll just say, I was thinking that what does it mean? I know what it means, but literally, but what, when it says, return to God, worship God, etc., etc. To me, I was thinking about that. What does that really mean? And I'm thinking, like, what is the creator? The basic question, what does it mean that there's a creator? To me, it means all life. It's like the umbilical cord. And if you told a baby that if you stop, I don't know, I can't think of an analogy, but if you put your finger up and you can't get blood from me anymore, and because you would rather have ice cream for whatever, you're going to die. And to me, it's the same thing. It's that God is spiritual life, but life in every way. So when we turn from God, it's not like God's hurt or God's insulted. Oh, we're not obeying God. It's like the very force that motors all existence. It's filled with every molecule is filled with God's presence and love. So really, maybe the only way we could understand it is to put it in terms of, that are similar to a family. If you don't obey, if you don't obey your mother when she says, don't touch the fire, it's not because she's going to scorch you. The fire is going to scorch you. So when we don't walk with the God who's the very life of the universe, the life force is everything. It's not that God is saying, well, you're not obeying me, I'm going to do this. Maybe it's just what happens because you are divorcing the very life of the whole universe. I mean that's just the way I see it. It can't just be in my eyes that you don't love me and obey me. This is gonna maybe that's the way a parent talks to child. Maybe that's the way we need to hear it.
Yeah, well, every household has its rules. The earth is like a household. God gave us rules. He didn't give the rules to the Jews. He gave it to all the universe, the whole world. I mean, the whole earth. He put it in us. He breathed his spirit into us. He made us in his image. And he placed within us a conscience, an understanding of good and evil. And he says, okay, I'm light and I am life. Choose life. Here, I'm giving these things to you. So what does he tell us to do? He tells us to obey 10 of his commandments. That's it. 10. And how do we know? Because he told Moses. Moses went up to get them. He wrote them in stone for all of us. It's not a complicated message. But we have destroyed that. We've taken it out of our homes. We've taken it out of our schools. We've taken it out of the courtrooms. You don't even swear in a Bible anymore in a courtroom. It's like, and then we wonder why everything is going so chaotic, why there's so much anxiety, so much illness, so much death. The world is going nuts simply because we've turned our face. We've turned our face from the God of the universe. It's not a Jewish God. It's a universal God, a creator of everyone. And the only difference with us is that he chose a nation and said, okay, bring the message to all the nations so that you can live in peace and harmony together. But everybody has overcomplicated everything. It's like, if the 10 commandments say, like the 4th commandment says, keep the Shabbat. What does that mean? When I was, had my kids and I was working full time and Saturday came, that was my day to go to the hairdresser, to go shopping, because I worked all week, and Sunday was the day, I did cooking and visit family. And so there was no Shabbat. I knew it was there, but it had become such a religious thing that for me to keep a Shabbat the way I would have to keep it according to the rabbis seemed to be too big a deal. But that's not what God is telling us. If you read the word in Hebrew, melacha comes from the word salt, salary. Do not earn a salary. Don't let your servants or your family earn a salary on that day. That's all he's asking us. This is only one of the 10. And each one, every time we break it, we're adding to darkness on this planet. And every one of us is doing that. Every time I do something wrong, I have to ask God for forgiveness to make it right. Because we need to live in light. We need to spread light. And it's not an easy thing to do. That it may get boring, but I'm saying the same thing over and over again. But it's basically what the truth is. This is what God is saying. And we can't blame him when we do things wrong. Right, Jer? And that's what we do. That's what we do. Because it's easy to blame. I get that from my kids all the time. Look what you did. Nobody wants to take responsibility for what they do. We don't want to make decisions. We don't want to, because it's easier to blame someone. It's easier to ask for forgiveness than for permission. Anyhow, I think that's a good message for tonight, a powerful one. But every week there are powerful messages in the Torah. And how I wish more people would turn and listen. It's not a Jewish message. It's a message for all humanity. So on that note, I wish you adieu. Jerry, do you want to do the Aaronic benediction?
Yeah, I will.
We end off with the blessing that Aaron, the brother of Moses, who was our first high priest, the first Kohen, gave to the people of Israel.
And the congregation says, may it be thy will, Lord our God and God of our fathers, that this blessing which thou hast commanded to pronounce upon thy people Israel may be a perfect blessing, forever free from stumbling and iniquity. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kirshanu b'kedushaso shel Aaron, v'tzivonu levarechos amo Yisrael, v'yahavo.
Amen.
Yevarechecho Adonai Vishmerecho Yair Adonai Panav Elecha Vichuneka Yisa Adonai Panav Elecha V'yasem Lecha Shalom. V'samu et shemi al b'nei Yisrael v'ani arvorchem.
May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord shine his face upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift his countenance upon you and give you peace. So shall they put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them. And I pray blessings upon all of us. You know, for those who are not here with us tonight and are listening, I would really encourage you to forward this to other people, people you know. Let them just listen to what it says in the Torah. No, we all have a different way of seeing the Torah. And, you know, if it would open up our eyes of understanding, that's what we would want. If we could change our behavior in just one small way to bring a little bit more light to this world, then we would lessen the darkness that's in it, because God is light, and we don't, and his light will burn through the darkness that we see. So on that note, I wish you Shabbat Shalom, and we'll see you again, God willing, next week.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom.